Are you willing to accept Christ's invitation to know Him more intimately, love Him more intensely, and follow Him more closely, and then go out into the world and live His good news? If you say yes, then you could be the 13th apostle. Join Dan Duddy and Tom Caffrey, the odd couple of Catholic radio, as they ride the radio waves 2 by 2 to share the goodness, beauty, and truth of Jesus Christ and His church. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the 13th apostle.
Hillbilly music. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the 13th Apostle, where we explore the good, beautiful, and true of the Catholic faith and the Catholic Church, and our Catholic story of our latest politician in the news, Vice Presidential candidate J.D. Vance. You remember this music, Danny?
Yeah, you're ruining it. Yeah, keep it going.
I know you're getting all pumped up.
I know what movie I'm watching tonight.
Well, you're right. That is taken from the movie Deliverance. I just thought that was the best sample, only because it's the quickest thing that came to mind. There's obviously generations of hillbilly music, which I have no expertise. Deliverance, we're talking, in our context in this program, of course, we talk about deliverance in our faith tradition, and J.D. Vance talks about deliverance in the same context. It's a very interesting. It's a very interesting context with J.D. Vance. Now, you wanted to do. You read an article, and it was in the Catholic News Agency.
Yes. I believe that's where it's from. I have it right in front of me. Well, yes, that's the one I sent you. But, the content is consistent across the board because facts are facts. Well, in this case, anyway, they're across the board factually. But what I'm referring to today comes from the National Catholic Register. Yeah, I thought it was intriguing. That quite honestly, I didn't hear of J.D. Vance until he was pulled into the Republican arena as a running mate, potentially vice president of the United States. And then when the Catholicism...
Who's running mate?
Donald Trump's.
Okay.
Well, I had to say that?
Yeah, well, you didn't know about J.D. Vance, so just in case there's anybody who doesn't know that, the one person under the rocket doesn't know Donald Trump.
Well, they're under a rock.
Well, wait a minute. They might be in the rock of like an ancient monastery praying for the world and don't know about Donald Trump.
Well, that's true. They could be under a rock in Appalachia listening to albums from Deliverance, the movie Deliverance. Well, anyway, they're under a rock. So
Donald Trump And so what do you think?
Well, it was very hopeful and it was very intriguing. And in reading about his story, he's got real grassroots story. You don't often hear that. And it turned out after that the president, well, the ex-president of the United States of America, Donald Trump, was almost assassinated. There was an assassination attempt on him for the person who's under the rock to get this fast-breaking news today. And it even became more appealing, his life, who he is, and what he stands for, what he says he stands for. Because, well, God forbid, but, as vice president, if the president goes down, he's up and in if it gets there again.
So what appeals to you?
Say what?
What appeals to you?
His Catholicism, his conversion, his family life, his family love, his love for his mom, his love for his grandparents, coming from grassroots. I'm not sure if it's considered poverty, but at least he values poverty in what he says and the tone that he comes forward with. I thought it was very interesting that his Hindu wife was instrumental in supporting him and backing him, as he said to his wife that he felt himself being tugged toward Catholicism, which was not how he felt before their marriage. And in spite of their differences in religion and faith, that she was very, very, very supportive of him to make such a conversion in their marriage. And I thought that was really interesting, that marriage and marriage values came forward so profoundly. A lot of things are intriguing about him. It's politics. You don't know where this is going to go. I'm going to slow down for a minute, but I know I always put the cart before the horse. But when you get into abortion, when I had first read about his abortion views, I was excited. And then I read a little bit more deeply into it. There still seems to be a political compromise there, which he admits to. But go ahead. You grab the mic for a while. We'll dig in, see where we go. But I find him intriguing. He's very real to me. And I think he's candid.
Presumably he was equal. He was candid when he said he was totally pro-life.
Right.
Does that bother you at all?
That he was totally pro-life?
And now he's not?
Yeah, it bothers me.
How do you reconcile? I mean, like, for our listeners, from your perspective, a salt of the earth guy and whatnot, how do you reconcile that in you're not saying it's up to you whether you say how you're going to vote, but in determining who should get your vote, what their positions are, and whether you say no, okay, and then in the case of Vance's politics, he's no longer, his policies are no longer pro-life, I guess, in if we say the formal pro-life is total, and he's not.
Yeah.
Like, probably the best example of the grayest area in life is the case of the 10-year-old girl who was impregnated.
Right. Mm-hmm. That's when his tone shifted. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go.
I mean, how do you, so if you say you're pro-life, this is the stuff when you start getting into outside of your silo, in the silo is a common word, outside of your circle, like where you only exist in this Catholic circle, but the world is not Catholic. It's Catholic the way we understand it because it's God's creation, but it's universal, but it's not the Roman Catholic institutional faith. So how do you if your children approach you or student, children in your family or your students said, well, I'm not sure how to vote, Mr. Daddy or Dad or Grandpa or whatever, because now I can't imagine a 10-year-old being forced to bring, probably die carrying the child to term, the baby to term. So I'm sure, I have no doubt based on what I've read and heard from and about Vance, that while he I don't think was ever in a Catholic circle or, clan or silo, it was only Catholic, but it's where now you face these things. And if you're American and you go by, we just did an episode on the Declaration of Independence. Doesn't say Roman Catholic in there. So we can get back to that, and I want you to respond as if I'm your child or your student or something like that. Vance is he's been significantly influenced, as I have been, with the Catholic social teaching, and where I used to be. I'm never a follower of Ayn Rand, AYNRAND. Totally the individual, right? And just exalting the individual and the achievements of the individual. And if you don't make it, well, that's tough. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. If you don't have bootstraps, too bad. But I was much more doctrinaire in my economics and my financial thinking and whatnot. And then, life experiences mold us. Sometimes they maybe partially crush us, like we crush a little bit of a can or something like that. Maybe it's not totally crushed, but it's not the same. And so now we're presented with circumstances where, okay, this is like, the classic Les Miserables, You're stealing a loaf of bread because you want to save the life of somebody who's dying of hunger. Huh? They broke the law. Thou shalt not steal. They broke two laws, God's and man. So he faced some of that stuff. J.D. Vance faced some of that stuff. And he's definitely different. You look at some of his platforms, his policies and how he thinks about Catholic social teaching and how it has informed him. Now, I have problems with him, but I like that metamorphosis of him, so to speak. Go.
You like the metamorphosis within him? Are you referring to his conversion from atheism?
No, from his emphasis on Catholic social teaching. Okay.
Well, see, all right, so going back to the way I vote with hope. I vote hopelessly if no one is pro-life. And pro-life, in this case, and in way too many cases, is relative to whoever's around him or her in the political arena and to what degree they are pro-life. So I always vote with hope. And I know that we have some incredibly difficult circumstances, like the 10-year-old girl. But we also have a renowned, and forgive me for not remembering her name, but I believe she spoke when you and I marched for the March for Life in Philadelphia. And she was born of a 12-year-old mother who was raped. Her mother was 12 years old. And she honors her mother. She actually got her mother through drug rehabilitations and has actually kept her mother with her. So that was a 12-year-old who decided to have the baby by way of the grandmother insisting that her 12-year-old daughter have this baby that was conceived through rape. So there are those stories. There are the buts, that bring us to, let's go with the sanctity of life, and let's not be the author of life and death. And let's be hopeful. Hope is huge. So there's that to counteract, and it fans the fire of our convictions. But
well, speaking of grandmother, J.D. Vance, he attributes his conversion and actually his life in some ways, to his grandmother, who was definitely not Catholic.
Who was what?
Definitely not Catholic.
No, definitely not Catholic, and I think he referred to her as being unchurched, correct?
Right, from the standpoint of, use that term again, the institutional church, formal religion, formal denomination.
Yeah.
I mean, they're Protestant in the sense that they're Scots-Irish. So...
And she really despised organized religion. And I think he became a Catholic after she passed, right? And he was not reluctant to do so, but it was in the back of his mind, like, that his grandmother was gonna be upset with this.
Well, he was reluctant to talk about that. He was reluctant to talk about two things: becoming atheist, and then becoming Catholic, for the same reason. At least the one common denominator was, or I think the common denominator was his clan, and he didn't want to be separated, excommunicated, from his clan for either saying he was an atheist, which he was for a period of time, or that he was becoming, or at least interested in, and then serious about becoming Catholic. And it was an Episcopal. I think it was an Episcopal clergyman. Anyway, maybe Anglican. I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, it was Anglican, I believe. Yeah.
Who cracked his shell of atheism and what he thought was intellectual weakness of. I interpreted it as peasant faith. You couldn't. Well, how could you believe that? Christ's resurrection. I just watched a debate a few days ago with two scholars from Oxford University. One is a devout atheist, and the other one was a devout Christian. The contempt that the atheist professor had for the religious saint. I was even wondering why he was even in that seat in that debate, if he had, because he was it was shifting around, eye rolling, all this stuff. And I think that's my impression clearly was that Vance. Well, I know it was, because Vance said that it wasn't until he read St. Augustine, the Confessions and the City of God.
Yep.
More from an intellectual standpoint, the City of God.
That's right.
Right. I said, wait a minute now. Okay.
Yeah, but there's also the hillbilly, I think, coming out of him too because of St. Augustine's earthiness, and his ability, as Augustine was, is, and always will be, as an eternal saint, his candidness and the relatability that Augustine has always given us, and there's humor in that. Yeah, he was. It was the Anglican philosopher that really put the first crack into his atheism. It was Basil Mitchell, I believe is his name.
Yep.
Right? And then it moved onward to actually having been even pushed more towards Catholicism by a homosexual billionaire.
Married.
Yeah, married. Thiel, I think his name is, Thiel.
Yeah, Peter Thiel.
And how he had said that Christianity was as transcending the scapegoat myth of various cultures because Christ has not wronged the civilization has wronged him. And that's pretty neat coming from Thiel and his lifestyle. But that was a catalyst, and friendship with the with Dominican priests, I think, having a few drinks with them here and there and being really impressed and impacted by the intelligence that were coming from that friendship that had bloomed over the years was also a catalyst. But I think his wife was really a main catalyst, and I think he expressed that she saw the changes in him and that he was really falling in love with Catholicism and everything about Catholicism, and he talks about that too. And she kind of pushed him toward that. Chronologically, that's a little out of order. I think it was her first, and then the friendships with the Dominican priests really put him over the top. And then onward to Augustine. I think he took his confirmation name, right?
Yeah, I wondered whether the Dominican priest took offense at Vance becoming Augustinian.
Yes. I don't think there was too much offense to it. I think there was still a celebration, but... I hear you, there's humor in that. But, so it's an interesting story. I think the story is just about to be told. man, there's so much going on, and I'll say it 1,000 times, and I won't apologize for it. Hope, 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 hope. And see where this goes. But
well, Peter tells us we have to, not Peter Theo, St. Peter tells us we have to have a reason for the hope.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's reason for it.
That can't be. I mean, because one of the things what turned Vance off was the idea of, again, those pious platitudes. He mentions in one of his talks, the example of confronted with an unspeakable tragedy, and the response, the Lord works in mysterious ways. In the face of loneliness and desperation, God still loves you. In his experience, those platitudes ring hollow. And in my experience, they ring hollow. Not my personal experience, but not just my personal experience. My experiences with others in bad situations.
Yeah, that's right. And you've always brought that up. I mean, that's a big part of your charism.
Yes,
you pick that right out. You shun that, and you call the person right out on that. But he was positively stricken by some real fundamental faith that, I'll go back to Bishop Strickland once again, that we need to come to know the person of Christ. And he was raised in a way where, what was the term they used? The deity of Christ was actually shunned by, I think, his grandmother.
Yeah,
because she saw Christ so fundamentally true as the Son of Man, perhaps more than anything.
They don't have deities.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
They don't have royalty. The king. Right. The Christ the King. Well, sorry, the king was tormenting the Scots-Irish. I mean, they went from Scotland to Ireland. They're also known as the Ulster Scots. I mean, and then a lot of them ended up coming here for religious freedom. There we get back to the Declaration.
Right.
And how do we live in a world where we're just not living with Catholics? And you say, well, J.D. Vance's grandmother's going to hell because she wasn't a Catholic. Sorry, I'll never believe that.
I know you won't.
You might, but they, I don't.
I leave that one to God. When I hear that, I just say, I'm just going to get to work and take care of business. God, you take care of that one.
So, Danny,
I'm going to take care of the family.
Is your Masters of Dirt right there. Because when I was, and you made me think of this Sister Marcy, who runs a retreat house. Mm-hmm. And when the discussion came up about how difficult it is to forgive for some people in terrible circumstances and whatnot, and about Christ's actions on the cross and this and that, and she said, if you can't forgive, if you don't know how to forgive, then let God forgive.
There you go. Yeah.
Right there.
Yes, sit back. It's part of surrender, actually. There's a lot of humility. There's a lot of humility in that.
Radical surrender.
It is. I can't do it. I mean, that's what they're saying. I can't do it. So there's humility in it. You got to do it for me, and that's actually a part of the reason of why he went to the Catholic faith. He said that practicing his Catholic faith helped him increase his patience, take care of his temper. He must have had a temper because he speaks of it curbed his temper, and to forgive more easily. And he learned how to put his family over his career through Catholicism.
Exactly.
So
glad you mentioned that. Virtue. He refers to one of the Catholic influences in him, René Girard from France.
Yes.
About mimetic rivalry, and that's a fancy term, mimetic. But just think of a mime. And it was, okay, we want to mime others. We're in competition with others, and it was without virtue. Yeah. So he began to shift about virtue. We're going to wrap it up, Danny, but I just want to say he's really going to be tested. And I think I'm not sure he's passed. I don't think he's passed all the tests for sure. I don't believe he has with agreeing to be on the ticket with Trump. I think he's going to be put in a variety of situations in that collaboration. and that will be interesting to see, even just during the campaign if they don't win.
Yeah, but I think his honesty, though, I know we're wrapping up, but just hear this. I think his honesty really gives me more hope than ever. I know he's going into the fire now, but he has said, I'm a Christian and a conservative and a Republican, so I have different views about what that means. But you have to be humble and realize that politics are essentially a temporal game. So he knows the difference, and he's publicly saying it, and that gives me hope. That gives me a lot of hope. All right,
now, hold on, just real quickly. That can be used as like an escape clause.
I know that, but I'm going with the hope side. I'm going to the other side. I hear you. He could be entering us into like, all right, I told you I was going to be like this. I get that. But I'm putting myself on the other side of it. I get what you're saying. I didn't mean to cut you off, but.
No, that's all right. You're good at that.
I do it all the time, right?
You do, but that's.
Wait, one more thing.
That's part of your charisma. It's not your fault. God made you that way.
Right now, that would really tick you off, but I don't have it. All right, let's go.
All right, Danny. What's coming up next?
Let's go. Stay tuned for the Angelus and your prayer intentions with Peter and Jemmy.
And WQPHradio.org. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, friends all, for your support. A real quick shout out to Gene, our colleague at the helm with producing these episodes. We had a little back and forth with about our episode, and we talked about authentic masculinity and loneliness and isolation and whatnot. And she sent us links to an episode or two of The Twilight Zone, which were right there, right between the eyes on that. So it was perfect. See, it's the 1950s, early 60s. Nothing is new. Nothing new under the sun, as Ecclesiastes tells us. Only variations on the same theme. All right, buddy. God bless you, Danny.
God bless you, Tom. God bless you, Tommy. God bless you all.
Thank you for listening to The 13th Apostle with Dan Duddy and Tom Caffrey. For more information on Dan, visit his website at www.danduddy.com or email dcduddy@gmail.com. Tom's website is faithpilgrims.com or email trcaffrey@faithpilgrims.com. How about you? Will you be the 13th Apostle?